All right, it's time to go live. Give me a moment to adjust my camera. We're still playing around with yeah, I think that's good enough. All right, so I like to show off my background. All right, so today's live is going to be a continuation of last week's live, where we talked about mitochondria and longevity. We're going to talk about fasting and longevity because they're very closely linked. Who doesn't want to live longer? All right. I'm sure all of us want to know the secret to longevity. The great thing about it is that um, it's available to all, no matter what your age, your income level, right? Your political leanings, whoever you are, wherever you are on earth, there are secrets to living longer that everybody has access to. And that's why, of course, as a Christian based channel, a faith based channel, we always give credit to our creator for making health so easily and readily available. Aren't you glad that you don't need an insurance plan or policy to cover you from chronic diseases? We have the remedy for all mankind's ills in the food we eat, and that's what we teach and present on Diabetes 180. We try to present the science behind nutrition as medicine, of course, with the focus on diabetes, because diabetes is so linked to many other chronic conditions. And By the end of our live, we'll give you an opportunity, if you have not already, to join us for a free diabetes reversal workshop that's going to be happening next week for 3 days. So next week, we're not going to have a live, okay? We have our lives every Monday at 7 p.m. at this time. So thank you for my faithful viewers, those who are always watching. For those, if you're new, let us know who you are. Even if you're not new, let us know who you are in the chat section. I do try to check our chats when the lives are over, but it's nice to see you guys corresponding with me in real time. It really keeps it interesting for me too. I don't always have somebody to interview. So just me and you talking, right? So let me know who you are if you're watching for the first time, especially, and maybe where you're watching from is cool too. We do broadcast over multiple platforms, so your comments may not be visible, but I should see them. Right, so they may not be visible to other people who are watching, but I should see them myself when you're commenting. And as we are talking about our topic, fasting today, it's going to be a short one. It's not going to be very long because I want to make sure I plug in the workshop that's happening next week. I will be trying to do my best to, answer your questions. All right. So, fasting. Who's fasting? Who I want to know whoever's watching is already on a fasting plan. If you're already fasting, that's awesome. How long are you fasting? Let us know how long you're fasting, or I should say, how much time you fast in a day. There are multiple ways of fasting. There's prolonged fasting. There's intermittent fasting, where you're fasting a minimum of about 16 hours is generally considered intermittent, but anything as long as 12 usually counts. There's alternate day fasting, where you're fasting for 24 hours occasionally, or one OMAD, one meal a day fasting, is one thing that works pretty well for a lot of people too. There's many methods, but we're going to talk about the science behind what makes it work in a very practical way, because I find for myself, when I understand the science behind something, when I understand why something works, I'm more likely to do it. Okay. So, I mean, it doesn't mean you have to understand how it works, right? I don't know how a car works, but I still use it. But it is helpful when you kind of understand the mechanics of a vehicle, right? So that you can know how to work around anything, make it work for you better, I should say. You can make it work for you better when you understand it. So, I think anyone responded as far as who's fasting. So I'm guessing everyone who's watching is not practicing any kind of fasting at all. Am I fair to say that anyone watching does not fast at all? Correct me if I'm wrong, but let's get into it. We try not to be too long in our lives because I know you guys are busy. All right. So just going to start off with a recap. All right. So last week we talked about mitochondria, and basically, in summary, but mitochondria is the battery of your cell. Okay. When the battery is damaged, when you think about a battery in anything, whether it be something complicated like a car or something simple as a toy, it does not work, right? The machine, the whatever that battery is meant to power will not function well, right? So mitochondria, being the battery of our cells, are very important for longevity and health. We mentioned, and this is a recap. We're going to go into fasting in a minute, but we talked about Amazon warehouse as an example of uh, a facility that needs a lot of power to run. That if it doesn't run well, things get chaotic, right? Things get really messy. And I'm gonna go back to that analogy of Amazon warehouses when I talk about fasting. That's why I like to put that in there. We talked about, of course, how when you take old mitochondria from an older rat and put it inside a human cell, that cell starts to degenerate within days, right? It starts to deteriorate and decline only from just 15 pieces of mitochondria. To put that into context, some cells have as much as 1,000 pieces of mitochondria or more. So just 15 pieces of old mitochondria makes this one human cell start to deteriorate. So you can imagine we need to protect our mitochondria to be healthy. I'm going quickly through this because this is a recap, okay? But if you have questions, again, leave them in the comment section. We talked about liver dysfunction and muscle and mitochondria, sorry, and how the fact that when our mitochondria becomes dysfunctional, it leads to insulin resistance in our muscles, in our liver, in our pancreas. This is why many people end up with diabetes when mitochondria becomes dysfunctional, right? And it's vice versa. As you become more resistant to insulin, it causes mitochondria to become more dysfunctional in a vicious cycle, leading to diabetes, right? So that should be understood. We talked about exercise and the importance of exercising to boost not just the number, but the function of our mitochondria. So as we exercise, the amount of mitochondria that's produced in our cells can generate ATP, to generate energy can go up by up to 100 times. So if you can do anything to improve the health of your mitochondria, exercise was one of them. And the whole point of last week was to get to the last slide, which I know I didn't spend much time on, but seek plant-based foods that are high in phenolic. I'm always butchering these words. Phenolic content, right? So this is a phytonutrient. This is that's found in specific plant-based foods that are known, have been proven to boost the function and number of mitochondria. So going through the list, that's soybean, of course, soy products, cocoa, or the cacao beans, which comes from cocoa, or I should say, produces cocoa, onions, apples, blueberries, red grapes, cinnamon, coffee seeds or coffee beans, and red grapes. These are foods that we could start adding to our diet to boost our mitochondria, right? So that's where we left off. Now, what about fasting? Fasting is a great way to boost our mitochondria and reverse a lot of the chronic diseases that come with aging. I like to ask a question: who wants to live longer? Right? It's a no-brainer. All of us want to live longer, but we're going to talk about the benefits of fasting and incorporating that as part of your health plan. All right, and your plan. If your plan is and your goal is something simple as losing weight, of course, we know fasting can work well. But many of us suffer from many bigger goals than just weight loss. We want to come off medications. We want to reverse diabetes. We want to prevent cancer or even reverse cancer. And fasting has been shown to be beneficial for all of these things. And we're going to explain very briefly why, right? So we're going to go into the science now. There's an experiment that's kind of cringeworthy that was done on rats, okay? These poor rats, of course, are subjected to a lot of experimentation for our benefit. This one experiment is kind of sickly, literally. So what they did is they took lab rats and they blasted them with Hiroshima levels of radiation, right? Enough to kill at least 50% of the rats within a week or so, I believe. And of course, just as was expected, over half of them died. Then they took a set of lab rats, and before blasting them with Hiroshima levels of radiation, enough to kill half of the rats, they made them fast for a period of time. And after fasting and being blasted with this radiation, none of them died. It's almost so, these gamma rays that should have killed at least half the population killed none of them when they fasted. It's almost like they became super Hulk, right? And they became their cells became resistant enough from this damage, right? This chemical component that should have destroyed their cells became resistant against it. Of course, we're not lab rats, but you could still postulate that, if a rat can benefit from fasting, so can I, even especially if, in this level. And so I want to go back to that Amazon warehouse analogy to explain or help us understand why fasting is so powerful when it comes to disease reversal and disease prevention. Okay, there's a lot of technical jargon that you could throw in like autophagy. I don't know. Has anyone heard of autophagy? Autophagy is actually something that is really interesting. We'll mention it in a minute here, but this is a really simple way to explain why fasting works so well. So let's go back to Amazon warehouses. Um, so Amazon warehouses, which are infamous for being very busy workplaces, where lots of injury occurs, fatigue, damage, right? People get burnt out, from the excess labor in an Amazon warehouse. Okay. Now imagine this, an Amazon warehouse that, as busy as it was, right, never closed down for maintenance. So imagine a warehouse, an Amazon or any warehouse, but we're going to think about Amazon because Amazon again is infamous for being super having super high rates of people being injured at work. Imagine they never closed their machines down to check them to make sure they're working. They never shut down or closed to clear the debris and the boxes and the knives and all the other stuff. I don't know what that's in the Amazon warehouse. They never cleaned up. They never cleaned up. They ran the business, they ran the warehouse 24 hours, 7 days a week, never stopping for maintenance, never stopping for repair, right? Wow, we got a comment here that someone who works in Amazon's warehouse got mesothelioma. This is something I did not expect, but yeah, you can really suffer a lot of damage at Amazon warehouse, apparently even lung disorders. Natural Beast says they work too much away from the sun, no vitamin D. Yep. There's a lot of reasons why this Amazon warehouse should shut down once in a while for maintenance, at least to give the people a break from work. Right. So we're talking about fasting though. How does this connect to fasting? Okay. So this overworked warehouse, you can imagine the damage that would suffer, not just from the machines alone not being repaired and maintained, but the people would suffer inside this warehouse because there's a lot of work involved in this warehouse, right? And you need to stop and reset and close down so that the boxes don't pile up, the trash doesn't pile up, the debris, the chaos of the work environment doesn't cause injury and harm. Actually, if you think about the end goal of Amazon, which is to put deliveries out there, production starts to slow down, right? Because of all the debris that's in the clutter that's built up in the warehouse. Now your end goal of being more productive as a warehouse is going down the gutter, right? Because you're not shutting down to maintain and repair the warehouse. Where am I going with this, Lewis? What does it have to do with fasting? Anyone have any maybe you can see where I'm going. Maybe you can see where I'm going with this Amazon warehouse analogy. Our cells are like Amazon warehouses. Okay. We too are very busy. Our cells have thousands upon thousands of chemical reactions every minute of every day that they have to that they are responsible for. Our cells are building proteins from amino acids, right? They're digesting materials, right? They're performing cellular functions that are specific to the tissue they belong to, right? They need a break because as your cells are growing and dividing and working, what's happening is a lot of damage is accumulating, right? Again, I asked if anyone's heard of the term autophagy. Autophagy is when your cells close down or slow down enough to repair some of that damage. It starts to repair some of the broken and misfolded proteins. Over time, the mitochondria that we were talking about that became dysfunctional from overuse, those batteries that are low, they start to be replaced with new batteries, Okay, some of that cellular debris and junk that's built up in that cell is now cleared from IL-7, and now you have you basically flip the switch, a new switch, and the cells are almost reborn, made new. This happens when we fast. When we fast, we are like an Amazon warehouse, right? Which is on rest, on reset, so that we can clear the debris, all the chaos of living, right? All the damage, all the radiation that comes from driving to work every day, right? Like thinking of that rat. We need times to repair, times to recover from the damage and make ourselves new again. So, this is what happens when we fast and why fasting is so beneficial. I hope that makes sense to everybody watching. Now, what happens when you consider the fact that we don't fast very much, right? We don't fast very much, especially in our modern day. The idea of fasting actually is something that has been with us for centuries. For I'd say the majority of our existence on Earth, we have been subjected to periods of fasting. Right? If you think about the many times on Earth where there were prolonged fast famines, right? Our bodies are accustomed to going not just many hours, but sometimes days without food. If you look at our time on Earth in history, okay, even societies like Rome, it was very common to eat just one meal in a day. It was actually in some societies in Rome thought that those who eat more than one meal a day were gluttons. Okay, in our bodies during these prolonged states of not having food available, that's when our bodies recovered, right? And for all the damage and all the chaos of living, our cells got to reset during these long periods of fasting. Now we fast forward to our day and time, and now we got breakfast and lunch and dinner, which is something actually of a modern invention. It wasn't until I believe the 19th century during the Industrial Revolution that people started eating breakfast because of their regular work hours, right? They had to start the day with food, to go into the factory. And then we got in the 20th century, thanks to Dr. Kellogg, and the famous invention of breakfast cereal, that breakfast became such a common thing, breaking your fast early in the morning. But that is not something that it was part of our time on most of our time on Earth as humans, eating early in the day, not just early in the day, but also eating 3 meals in a day, right? This idea of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If anything, used to be a time for most of our time, those who ate that much were those who are extremely wealthy, a very small population. But now it's everybody, and everywhere we go, we are surrounded by calories. We're surrounded by food choices. We're surrounded by options, right? That makes it very hard to think about skipping a meal, right? But I want you guys to understand, if nothing else, that fasting is actually something that we were designed to do. Not only is it biologically beneficial, but we were biologically designed to abstain from food for long periods of time. Now, that should lead to a question. I'm sure you're thinking, well, okay, Lewis, how long should I fast to get this benefit of fasting? This is awesome. I want my cells to reset. I want to rejuvenate on my body. I want to have new batteries built. I want to close the Amazon warehouse of my cell so I can live longer. And again, this is just to highlight how powerful it is. Fasting is when it comes to longevity. Fasting has been the only intervention that has been reproduced by research to prolong life, right? So we know that fasting is the one thing that we know for sure, without a shadow of a doubt, that you can live longer by doing. So how do I turn on autophagy? How do I turn on that cellular repair and maintenance? How long should I fast? You may not like the answer. um, because for a long time I thought 12 to 16 hours was enough, right? Most people, when I ask people online how long they fast, they're usually fasting 16 hours most. Average hours from people I've surveyed, people fast from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. I don't know if that's you. 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. is a popular fasting time, but it's not long enough to activate autophagy, right? Or cellular maintenance and repair. This process of cellular cleaning, of cellular recycling, actually doesn't start occurring. And then there's no hard length of time, like, but it's actually a time range. But from most studies, they say from 24 to 48 hours on average. That's when most people are going to start getting into that cell maintenance repair. So it's not until the prolonged periods of fasting. Is anyone here fast? I think I asked already. Is anyone fasting here? No one said they're fasting. That's okay. But I'm sure a lot of people who are fasting usually say they're fasting for something less than 24 hours. I should say doing intermittent fasting. But to get the benefits of autophagy, of longevity promotion, studies say you got to fast for a minimum of 24 hours. For most people, it may be even longer before you start to get the benefit. That's a long time for me, at least. Um, yeah, Dr. Jamal, I think if I'm pronouncing it right, asks, is there is there a link between fasting and bone density? That's a very good question. I'm not 100% sure I can answer. Um, on bone density, that for sure, one thing for sure is if you have to differentiate between prolonged or starvation mode, right? When you go 7 days or more than a week of fasting, right, your body goes into starvation mode, right? You start to go into protein deterioration. And at that point, bone density, of course, I could see being negative, hampered, right? So our bodies are made for short periods, but not long periods of fasting. Once you go into a week or more, right? 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks of fasting, right? Our body starts to almost eat itself, right? That's when bone density, of course, can be hampered. But shorter periods of fasting, when we're talking about cellular cleaning, I can only imagine, okay, that bone density actually is improved. So that being said, though, 24, 48 hours, 36 hours, that's where you could safely fast. I wouldn't probably advise, if someone's not accustomed to fasting, don't go longer than 2 days. Okay. Because after 3 days, that's when you start to go into mineral depletion, right? Your potassium levels, your phosphorus levels, other electrolytes start to diminish, thiamine. It can be very dangerous when you go to prolonged fasting of a week or more. So to answer your question, short periods of, I would say, 24 to 48 hours here and there is beneficial. Going longer than 3 days can be probably harmful, right? And that's when you want to do it under a supervision of a medical professional. When you can have your lab work monitored, make sure those electrolytes, those minerals aren't being depleted. Our kidneys are very good at electrolyte balance. About a certain point, of course, our kidneys can't keep up. That's why if you're going more than 3 days, you should only do it under medical supervision, right? It can start to get dangerous, especially when you go into a week of fasting, right? Um, so that's why I made a mention in the description section of this video that I was going to talk about an alternate to fasting, right? What else can I do? Because Lewis, fasting is hard. I've tried it, I failed, or I don't like to starve. That's normal. Is there something else I can do? And the answer is yes, there is something else you can do that's beneficial to longevity, right? And this is where I'm going to end tonight. This is where we're going to end tonight. And that is go fast or go vegan. So, of course, you could do both, but studies show that many of the benefits of fasting, um, like mitochondrial function, in number, the increase in the number and function of mitochondria, some of that cellular cleaning, protection from from oxidative stress, right? Repair of damaged DNA. Many of those benefits that comes from autophagy, right, actually can also occur when we restrict animal proteins, specific animal amino acids. The main one being methionine. Methionine restriction decreases mitochondrial oxygen radical generation and leakage, as well as oxidative damage to mitochondria, DNA, and proteins. So, in other words, when we are abstaining from animal-based foods that are higher in methionine than plant-based foods, we can get the benefits of fasting without fasting, right? Studies show, all right, and this is another study quoted in the NIH, that low methionine content of a vegan diet may make it easier, more feasible to go on a diet that promotes longevity, because vegan diets that eliminate animal protein, are low in an amino acid that when high, can hamper or hinder you from going into cellular repair. Now, for time's sake, I'm going to end it there. We're probably going to have a live maybe in the future that explains the science behind that. Now that's a loaded study. A lot of us may be like, "How does that work?" Well, I want to understand it. If you're like me, I want to understand why. You don't just tell me what, tell me why. So I promise you, and we have talked about in the past. We're going to talk about more why animal protein specifically can hinder can hinder this process of cellular repair and recovery, right? Animal protein hinders cellular repair recovery. This is why many studies show those who are plant-based vegan tend to live longer and live free from chronic diseases, right? When compared to the general population. So fast. In summary, fast or go vegan. Go fast or go vegan, or do both. Do both. There's nothing wrong with doing both. Now, of course, that being said, is very hard. I don't know which is harder. If I were to ask, what's harder, being a plant based or fasting, both can be very challenging in the day and age we live in. There's a lot of food temptation, a lot of cravings. Stress drives us to overeat, right? We have traditional foods that we're used to. Going whole food plant-based can be very hard, and it's why Diabetes 180 has been created to make it easy for you. This platform that we invite the public to join every Monday at 7 p.m. is a way to motivate us, not just with the science behind why we should be eating whole food plant-based, but also stories of people who've done it and reversed diseases like diabetes. My wife being one of them, and many clients that I now work with. Next week, we have an opportunity for everyone to take advantage of, uh, um, whether or not you have diabetes or not, because all of us, unfortunately, I shouldn't say all of us, many of us are eating our way towards diabetes and don't know it, right? There's studies show that there are 1 in 4 people may have diabetes and not know it. But this is where we're inviting you to join us for a private workshop for 3 days, starting next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We're going to get together through Google Meet and go over the science behind diabetes reversal. Also, how to prepare foods that are going to reverse insulin resistance, the root cause of high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and obesity, as well as diabetes. And we're going to talk about how to overcome food cravings. So if you fall in line, if you fall into one of those three things, needing to come off medications, whether it be for diabetes or needing to reverse chronic diseases or lose weight, or just want to overcome food cravings, right? Master your food cravings. I invite you to scan the QR code, or let me go ahead and put the link in I should say chat. Yeah, the chat of this presentation. So you'll find it also in the chat section. So make sure you check the chat section. I just entered there, and that's going to show you the link to join and get updates and an invitation. It is only available through private invitation. Okay, so it's not something for the public. So if you like our private invite, make sure you click on that link in the chat section. All right. And I invite you to join. So that's going to be, again, from next Monday, January, I think it's January 27th to January 29th. We're going to be covering the science behind diabetes reversal and insulin resistance, making sure that we maximize using food as medicine. It's what we want to do. It's our goal here on diabetes. It's what we strive for. All right. If you have any questions, concerns, comments about how to join, of course, let us know through private message or through this chat. I don't always see the chat, but you can always private message me on my profile page. Right. So next Monday, again, we're not having a live. All right. I want everyone to remember that. Instead, we're going to have our workshop, and I'll just look for Another thing too, if you haven't already gotten a part of our email a list, because we do put out emails every week inviting people or reminding people about these live events, then make sure you check the description section of this video. If you're on Facebook, it's below YouTube. No, sorry, it's above this video on Facebook, below on YouTube. The description section has a link for you to sign up for diabetes recipes, reversing recipes. That gets you automatically signed up to our email list. Okay. And so let me just go ahead and share my screen here to show you. Let's see the invitation. I think it is here. Where is it? Here it is. Yep. So that's the invitation. All right. So just as a reminder, January 27th to 29th, mark your calendar. Check the link in the comment section, all right, or on our social media platform, and you get the invite there. All right. So hope to see you guys next week, all right, in our private workshop, right? And as always, beloved, I pray above all things that you may prosper and be in good health. We'll see you next week.